Okay, hello everyone. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for being here on a Tuesday afternoon. Kind of have a wonderful little offering today. Put this together here recently, and we'll kind of jump right in, do some introductions. We got a wonderful guest speaker, and I'll just introduce myself first here real quick. And first of all, I'm a human being, sometimes at least. I don't like being human. We have to deal with technology, though. I'm not very human at technology. I'm also an earth being, a star being, a spiritual being, on a wonderful journey to learn and share what it means to be a being. Passionate and feel called to be in service to guiding and supporting human transformation, bridging the seen with the unseen, and the remembering and returning to symbiotic, harmonious living with all existence. So this offering a few weeks ago, Mary Beth, Tasha, and I discussed sharing about soil regeneration, specifically around Earth Day. It was also my birthday, and so we're like, oh, let's come up with this idea of really leaning into sharing and educating about soil regeneration and soil health. And specifically, as it is intimately woven into human health and vital to our existence. It's a shared passion of ours, Mary Beth, Tasha, and ours. And I know Ben Stallings, our guest speaker, it's a passion of his. And so I desired to dig a little bit deeper and propose the idea of offering something that included inviting a more seasoned educator, because I'm passionate about it, but my MEM, my Master's in Environmental Management, and my experience was more in the arena of sustainable and natural building, resilient communities, remote locations globally. And so I wanted to lean into someone who really was already an educator. So came across the opportunity and found a mutual friend that introduced me and put me in touch with Ben Stallings. And I'm going to introduce him more, but I want to briefly just give kind of the lay of the land of this call. So what are we sharing about today? What's our intention? We'll be sharing about soil health, human health, and earth health. I mean, that's really our focus, our three main topics, and they're all intimately interwoven. The current state of collective human and earth health, including the challenges we face, solutions, new discoveries, resources, and ultimately some hope. I think we could all use a big injection of hope when it comes to some of the challenges we face around soil health. Our intention is to offer information that educates, empowers, and activates ourselves and whoever's listening. So to our guests who are listening, we're hoping that this is an offering that educates, empowers, and activates. So that's our intention for the call. And with that, I'm proud to introduce our guest educator, Ben Stallings. Ben Stallings is an educator with Kansas Permaculture Institute, known for his work in soil ecology, permaculture design, and regenerative practices, research and education in both rural and urban settings. In this excerpt from his soil ecology lecture, he'll spotlight some of the amazing findings over the past 30 years that have turned soil science upside down. I'm really excited to hear about those. Ben, I really appreciate you being here and leaning into this invitation, taking the time to share from your experience and your expertise. We appreciate you. We welcome you. The cyber floor is yours.
Thank you, Ben. That was a very nice introduction. And let me see if I can move this thing off of my screen where it's blocking me. All right, so I'll just jump right in here. Yes, I am an educator with the Kansas Permaculture Institute, even though I live in Nebraska. There's another permaculture institute in Colorado that's closer to most of you, I think, called Pikes Peak Permaculture. They're worth checking into. And I'm also representing my company, which is Interdependent Web Permaculture Design. And let me briefly say I am not a soil scientist. I do not have a degree in ecology or even biology, the reason I'm passionate about this field, about this topic, is because in 1996, I I witnessed one of these big transformational events, and over the past 30 years, there have been a whole series of them. So I want to introduce you to some of those things because they've, like, the things that I'm about to tell you, if I were to go back in time 30 years and talk to my professors who were teaching soil science at the time, uh, they would think it was a total crackpot because although some of these breakthroughs reinforce indigenous knowledge and things that indigenous people and mystics were trying to convince scientists of, um, the actual mechanics of how things work are completely beyond anything that we imagined, even from within and without the scientific realm. So briefly, like, our scientific understanding has been limited by the tools that we have. So up until about 1840, our understanding was limited to what we could detect with our senses, right? And what tools were available at the time. From roughly 1840 to 1996, the dominant paradigm was chemistry. 1840, I'm using 1840 as the cutoff there because that's when the Guano Islands off the coast of South America were opened for exploitation, which had all kinds of ramifications, uh, uh, unexpected consequences. But for, within the realm of soil ecology, the main impact was to make agriculture dependent on chemical inputs. And so that's where our dependence on chemistry came from, was the exploitation of the guano deposits. So what happened in 1996 was that a researcher at USDA discovered what it is that gives soil its texture, the chocolate cake crumbly texture. For 11,000 years of agriculture, nobody knew what caused that texture. And it turns out to be a set of chemicals collectively called glomalin, produced by fungus that grows symbiotically with plants, which means that you can't just focus on the plants, you can't just focus on the fungus, you can't even just focus on the microbes. They are all working together as a team to produce glomalin. And here's a little quote from Sarah Wright about how difficult it was to discover glomalin. The other major the other major tool that has revolutionized our understanding of soil science since then is DNA processing or genomic analysis. And this actually turns out to be an understatement. She said 98% of soil microbes were not detectable before that technology. It's actually much higher. It's more like 99.9%. People are finding that the longer they leave the genomic analyzers running, the more things they find. There's just an incredible amount of diversity in even just a tablespoon of soil. So what this means is, with this glomalin thing, means that you can look at a field like this and you can say, hey, why is the dirt in the background eroding and the dirt in the foreground is not eroding in the same, climatic condition here? And the answer is there's too much disturbance, because disturbance, tilling or any other disturbance that happens too often for too long, kills the fungus that creates glomalin that holds the soil together. And that might seem self-evident, but look at a picture like this. There's no tilling happening here. This is the high school near my house. And again, the dirt is eroding, but it's eroding from along the fence line and around the trees. What's the disturbance there? It's not, it's not tillage. The disturbance is they're spraying Roundup. And by killing off the plants, they kill off the fungus that's dependent on the plants, which causes the glomalin to break down, which causes the soil to erode. So the disturbance doesn't have to be tillage. Any disturbance that happens too often for too long will cause the soil to break down and erode. Um, but another piece of our understanding from the last 30 years is the ratio between fungi and bacteria um, is different at different stages of ecological succession. So as above ground, bare soil gradually gets taken over by weeds, and then more uh, annual plants, and then some shrubs, and then maybe some forests, early stage forest, and then a mature forest. At the same time, the ecosystem under the ground is maturing from a fungal dominant ecosystem, or sorry, from a bacterial dominant ecosystem to a fungal dominant ecosystem. So here you see 10 times the bacteria as fungi, and the bacteria increase, but the fungi are increasing much faster. So you've now got 10 times the fungi as bacteria in the mature forest. And what that means is that if you were, against all, advice, to cut down a mature forest and try to raise vegetables there, you would have very poor luck doing that because the fungal ratio is too high. There's too much fungus for your vegetables. And so you do need some sort of disturbance to set back the ecological succession if you're going to grow vegetables or grains or any kind of annual crop. So it's not the disturbance by itself is necessarily bad. It's too much disturbance is bad, but some disturbance is necessary in order for us to do agriculture. And there's a scientist named Dr. Elaine Ingham who has really worked to popularize this idea of the bacterial fungal ratio and how important that is to different plants. Different plants need a different ratio. So another huge revelation just in the last few years, just about 7 years ago, less than that, was that plants not only selectively breed and selectively attract the bacteria that they need, the microbes that they need around their roots, they actually ingest those microbes and eat their contents and then spit their DNA back out into the soil through the root hairs for them to go around again. So this has been happening for all of history, for as long as there have been plants. And we never knew that it was happening until 2018. Nobody even dreamed that this was happening until it was discovered 7 years ago. So what's happening here? What you're looking at here is the tip of a root, and the plant will exude some sugars, right? Polysaccharides into the soil that are very specifically chosen to attract and help to breed the microbes that the plant needs. Okay, and it needs them because the plant can't get the nutrition out of the soil that it needs all by itself. It needs help from fungi and bacteria that feed on sugar. Okay, sugar is the energy of sunlight turned into chemical form, and that's what feeds the underground ecosystem. So the plant exudes this little droplet of sugars, which attract the microbes, and then the plant slurps that droplet in and dissolves off the cell walls of the microbes, eats their contents, and spits their DNA back out through these root hairs, where they then go around and do it again. So it's basically milking the microbes. But this helps to answer a question that people had for a long time, which was, how do microbes get inside the plant? Because especially with genomic analysis, we can now see that a plant is not just an individual organism any more than a person or an animal is a single organism. There are tons of microbes living inside the organism. And the question was, well, if the plant grows from a seed, how do all those microbes get in there? And now we know that the plant is actively ingesting those microbes out of the soil. And so that allows not only for symbiotic fungi to live inside the plant, but also bacteria that can help to fix nitrogen, they can help to to boost the plant's immune system. They're doing all kinds of things inside the plant, just like they're doing inside our bodies. And they get in there because the plant actively ingests them. So this is kind of a mind-blowing thing, I think. This slide is a soil matrix, or a matrix of soil improvement techniques that you can look at this address here if you're interested. But the main thing that I want to show you here is that biochar wins hands down. Like, it is suitable for all sorts of applications in all climates. The one limitation of biochar as a soil improvement technique is that it requires woody matter, and not all climates have a lot of wood available. So we guest taught a permaculture class in Nigeria a few years ago, and they were appalled at the suggestion. The students that we had in Nigeria were appalled at the suggestion that they would take trees and cut them down and burn them to make charcoal in order to improve soil. That's just beyond the pale, because they have no trees to spare. So with that caveat, biochar is organically grown wood turned into charcoal and inoculated with microbes, and that has proven to be a very, very effective soil improvement technique. Because what you're doing basically is, if you think about all the microbes that are making humus in the soil, these microbes are like construction crews that have come, that you have brought in to build houses. Humus is like a house in a lot of different ways. It's a place where microbes live. It's a place where they store their stuff. It's intentionally built by the microbes. Humus is like a house. And so if you need a construction crew to build a whole lot of houses, that construction crew needs someplace to live while they're building the houses. And so biochar is like apartment buildings for the construction crew to live in while they're building the houses for the long term. So that's how I like to talk about biochar. When I first heard about biochar 15 years ago or so, I thought it was a total scam. I thought it was hype. I thought it was hype because it sounded too good to be true. And all of the research since then has really proven that it is hands down the most effective technique that we have available to us. So number 2 on this list here, the second most effective technique, is the Johnson-Su bioreactor, which I'll show you in a moment. And that works together with biochar in that you could put biochar in your bioreactor, or you could take your bioreactor compost and use that to inoculate the biochar. Either way, these are 2 techniques that are like our best gold standard technologies now for building soil. And these other techniques are good too in various different ways, different situations. But these are the new hotness right now in the field. So another breakthrough piece of knowledge in the last few years has been autoinducers. So autoinducers were discovered in the 1970s as part of a discovery called quorum sensing. Quorum sensing explains how, among other things, it explains how fireflies turn their lights on and off. Bacteria and microbes in general signal to each other with chemical signals. They signal about where they are. And so they can tell where other microbes of different species are based on these autoinducer chemicals. Much like, pheromones in animals and some plants. Okay, so these autoinducer chemicals, all the microbes do it. What's special about lactobacillus is that they produce autoinducer chemicals that cause all the pathogens in the soil to go dormant. So you may have learned about hot composting as a way to try to make compost safe, right? You kill off all the pathogens by making a compost pile that's very hot and very aerobic, because all of the pathogens, all the bad bacteria are anaerobic. They can't tolerate oxygen. So a hot compost is one way to essentially sterilize your compost from all of the pathogens. But it turns out that's not actually necessary if you have lactobacillus, because it will make all the pathogens go dormant with these chemicals. And um, Dr. Jones, Dr. Christine Jones, has been working for years now to spread the gospel of autoinducers, because she's concerned that biotech companies will patent this technology. Okay, even though it's a naturally occurring phenomenon that is far older than multicellular life. Um, Even so, it would be really attractive for a biotech company to come along and say, "Hey, we've got this chemical that makes all the pathogens go dormant. Isn't that awesome?" Um, but this is part of our technologies that make fermented foods, preserved foods. It's fundamental to our survival as a species, and we cannot risk that being patented and monetized by a few corporations. So I'm really proud of Dr. Jones and all the work that she's done, and you should totally watch any of her videos that are on the internet. Um, so finally, let me talk just a minute about this bioreactor. I've built a few of these. I've modified the design myself because I don't like the landscape fabric. It falls apart. It turns into microplastics that wind up in your soil. I don't like that. So I use screen wire instead, aluminum screen wire. But the basic idea here is to chop up a whole bunch of organic matter and put it in this cage, and keep it moist. You see the garden hose going in the top. You keep it moist for a year, and you don't have to turn it, but you do have to keep it moist for a year. And that results in just some of the best, hands down, the best compost that has ever been grown, that has ever been made. It's phenomenally diverse in terms of the variety of microbes that live in it. And this technique has been proven to work in all climates of the world, and it's a really great technique. So I would recommend doing this kind of composting rather than hot composting, unless you have the tools to do hot composting responsibly, like a windrow turner, on an industrial scale. I would recommend not unless you have that, unless you're an industrial composter, I would recommend not doing hot composting. Do this instead. Um, so finally, my last slide that I've got here is recommending a couple of books to you. If you are a scientifically minded person and you want everything to be well reinforced by uh, you know um, peer review and so on, and published journals, then this Restoring Your Soil book is the book for you. If you would rather be on the cutting edge and explore new ideas that have not yet been fully verified, Matt Power's book is terrific. It's got lots of exciting ideas in it, but I am not satisfied that they have been fully verified yet. That doesn't mean they won't be. I fully expect that they will be, um, but it's a little bit bleeding edge. So that is my brief review of the latest in soil science. So I'm going to stop sharing and see if you have any questions for me. I don't know. Are we open to questions here? I don't see anybody unmuting.
Ben and Tasha, do we still have you on? I'm not sure if we were saving Q&A till the end.
Okay,
Um,
that works.
but I'm not sure where Tasha and Loki, I see their screens are off. I know they're there.
Okay.
There they are. Oh, awesome. Well, I guess since we have a bit of a pause here, is there anyone that has questions? Ben, thank you for that conversation. I was really fascinated about I didn't kind of know the depths inner workings of how the soil or how the plants actually absorb the nutrients from the soil. So I really enjoyed learning that part and appreciate that. Here we are, Tasha. I see you coming on.
Yes, I think for this segment, if there's a few questions in regards to what Ben just shared specifically, there's space for that.
Hey Ben, I have a question for you.
Okay, great.
Yeah, talking about biochar, we have some good friends of ours that are on the Big Island of Hawaii, and he's does pretty deep dive into biodynamics, very educated on that. He's transitioning into wanting to start a biochar operation. He's leaning into using a lot of the bamboo. Do you know with biochar, um, are there specific woods that really um, are better in that application than others? Would you have any recommendations as far as, what woods to use in your biochar recipe?
Um, my understanding is that any woody matter that has that cellular structure um, is can be equally good. The problem is that they burn at different temperatures, and so the challenge would be I would say if you're going to make biochar out of bamboo, don't mix it with any uh, tree wood because the tree wood will burn at a higher temperature and just burn the bamboo up. So when you're making biochar, you want to carefully watch the way that it's burning and put the fire out before it transitions to burning up the cellular structure. So you want to burn off you pyrolyze the the wood gas, the gas part of the plant matter, and you leave behind the solid part, the carbon. Um, and uh, uh, there's just because of the bamboo, to my knowledge, doesn't have lignin in it. So there's cellulose and then there's lignin. And hardwoods have a lot more lignin, and that burns at a higher temperature. So um, yeah, I would say don't mix softwood with hardwood if you're making biochar. That would be my advice.
That's good advice. I appreciate that. The other question I have is on composting. You mentioned not necessarily preferring hot compost. I know a lot of people that do that, and they have really good results. They can
Yeah.
make some really good humus and dark black, really rich soils. Do you have a gauge? I've heard different people talk about temperatures as to where that temperature, that sweet spot of that temperature that will kill off pathogens, but not in any way deteriorate microbial activity.
Oh, it totally will deteriorate microbial activity. The it's not a bug, it's a feature, as we say in my day job. The the whole idea with getting the temperature up that high is to kill off a lot of the microbes. Um, so uh, what you're doing is selecting for the aerobic microbes that can handle a lot of oxygen and handle a lot of heat, and killing off all of the others. So the reason I don't recommend hot compost is because of that. It also drives off a lot of the carbon that is in the compost, or that's in the parent material, drives it off as carbon dioxide because you're essentially burning it in these aerobic microbes. Um, so uh, although it's a very effective technology to use on a professional grade, at a professional scale, um, it's not something I recommend for amateurs because if you make any mistakes, if you don't turn it often enough, then the whole pile can turn into a stagnant mess and be very toxic to your plants. So, although it is totally true that there are people who have very good results with hot composting, and I'm not trying to diminish that. The Johnson Sioux compost is even higher quality and it's less work. So that's what I recommend people do instead.
Excellent. Thank you. Give just a few more seconds here if anybody wants to chime in with a question. I'll give you that space now.
Right. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing what the other speakers have to say.
Great. Thank you so much, Ben. I feel like what I need to do is like go on a walk with you and just have a couple hours. Let things come out because there's a lot of questions I'd love to ask you. Yeah, we'll transition now. Mary Beth, do you mind sharing the next slides? So we're going to jump into my short presentation here. And I'm almost nervous to do this in front of Ben because I feel like some of the stuff I'm going to talk about or just briefly express. And maybe it's a great opportunity, Ben. I would just absolutely welcome you to chime in at the end of this and give your additional insight because there's some things that I'm not even sure about. And obviously, I get some of my information off of the World Wide Web. So I love hearing from people that have in the field decades of experience more than what the computer tells me. But I'm going to start with the not so fun facts. We hear a lot of things about our soil health right now, and they can be really discouraging. The world loses 24 billion tons of fertile topsoil every year. We're losing healthy, nutrient-rich topsoils nearly 40 times faster than we're currently producing them. Current trends continue. 90% of the world's soils will be completely degraded by 2050. And this is as we approach peak population of 10 billion. So we have this really clear out of balance already where our soil health is degrading rapidly at a point even right now where it's hard to feed our population, our human population, our current population with a very nutrient-rich, healthy foods grown in healthy soils. We're not even currently able to do that. So as the trend of population continues to grow and soil degradation continues to decline, we're faced with even more intense challenges. So unsustainable farming practices really is the one we pick on a lot. It contributes to 80% of soil degradation. This is where, man, education, I think in all this, education becomes one of the most powerful pieces of the puzzle. You know, how do we educate farmers more? How do we get the science and the research and the knowledge to our main farmers, our big company farmers, and get, you know, the basically it's like turn a battleship around a creek at this point, you know, because the trends and the behaviors have been so ingrained that it's hard turning the big company farmers around to do things differently. Soil degradation costs the world economy $400 billion per year in lost productivity, health-related cost, and environmental damage. Soil care is self-care. So that's really what we're getting into as we start transitioning from Ben's presentation to mine and then on to Tasha and Mary Beth, is really looking at, we know that in our healthcare, we have major issues across our healthcare. And where does that start? Well, it starts in self-care, which is a big trend right now. A lot of people are starting to empower themselves by taking care of themselves. But we have to go a little bit deeper than that because that's not even going to be good enough going into the future. It's really hard to show up for self-care if you don't have the proper tools and nutrients and minerals for your body to have the right energy, the clarity, to even be able to show up for your own self-care. So self-care really starts with soil care. So yeah, we're building our health from the ground up, and we know the major contributors. We can we could probably kind of hit on this all day, but there's a lot of them. I'll just name a few of them. Urbanization, as we expand and grow, our population growth comes into play. Deforestation is another big one. The pesticides, herbicides, chemical fertilizers. We're talking about microbial health, the communities, as Ben was talking about, the workers that are really down in the soil, the vibrant life thriving that interacts with the root systems of our plant life, creating that healthy, abundant produce that burst forth from healthy soils. Industrial waste, we have heavy metals, plastics, monocultures, all harming global soil, threatening food security, diminishing life-sustaining biodiversity. I mean, that's what we see, right? We see that biodiversity creates health and harmony throughout every aspect of nature. And so when we take away biodiversity in our soils, it leads to desertification, lack of mineral and nutrients in the soil, which then we can't grow the good food to nourish our body, which also then contaminates water quality. And, I got a little video I'd like to share, and it's about 7 minutes long. I think if we're sharing that, kind of breaks down and simplifies some of these things we're talking about. Mary Beth, can I share my screen to share a video?
Yeah, so you should see there at the bottom the green button that says share. I did make you co-host, so when you hit that, as long as you have that browser up, you can click on it and let me stop sharing to let you do that.
Excellent. Okay.
Second, but during April and May, you can see there is so much carbon dioxide released to the atmosphere. Why? During April and May of the same year, might I add? Well, that is when we're tilling soils. And it turns out that because we're increasing these erosion rates to such a great extent through our agricultural practices, 2/3 of the world is desertifying. And it's projected that by 2050, 1 billion people will be displaced due to desertification of land. And it's estimated that the world's remaining topsoil will be gone in 60 years, which loosely translates to we have 60 more harvests left. And that is something they highlighted in the documentary that my mind was blown when I heard that. A lot of people might ask, well, how do we, just this one species on planet, have such a great effect? Well, one, we're everywhere, and two, desertification is a positive feedback loop. What does this mean? Well, positive climate feedback loops are loops in which one climate trend causes something that worsens that trend. For example, desertification by tilling leads to the release of water vapor and carbon dioxide, which leads to more warming and drought, which leads to more desertification. So that's one reason that desertification is spreading super rapidly after we just set it off. So what we want to have happen is more plants to grow in the soil and sequester the carbon, but also, and this is the key point, store it in the soils. So many people think that it's just reliant on, oh, we just have to plant trees and they'll sequester the carbon and store it, but they will not store it, at least not long term. We must rely on microbes, soil microbes, to actually do the taking of plant litter, aka organic carbon, and storing it longer term in the soil. Therefore, taking care of soil microbes is key to increasing the soil's capacity, well, the plants and the soil's capacity for sequestering and storing carbon. This actually also would benefit us by providing us more nutrients. Those microbes provide the plants essential nutrients that we also need. But the unfortunate thing here is that our own health is suffering, as well as our soil's ability to store carbon is suffering, because we kill soil microbes by spraying toxic chemicals on them. And this is another positive feedback loop, because the more we till, the weaker the soil becomes and the more spraying of chemicals that we feel we need to do. And we've sprayed so much that the plants we've grown for years and years actually take more fertilizer, more nitrogen, nutrients, and fertilizer to grow than they did a few decades ago. And these toxic chemicals not only kill soil microbes that are essential for carbon storing as well as our health, but they also seep into things like our water that we drink and the food that we eat. And some of these, like glyphosate, highlighted in the Kiss the Ground documentary, can cause cancer. And even the ones that don't cause cancer kill our microbiome. So if they're in the water we drink and the food that we eat, they're killing our microbiomes, our essential bacterial biomass in our own human bodies that is super important for our health. So as you can imagine, it's super important that we take care of these microbes because the soil has a much stronger and greater capacity for both carbon sequestering and storing than plants at the soil surface, which only can sequester so much carbon and do not store it long term. So all we have to do is stop stripping the soil of this ability, this amazing carbon sequestering and storing ability that it has naturally. And it's been proposed, as mentioned in that documentary, that if we can increase the carbon sequestering capacity of soils globally by just 0.4% annually, this would equal global carbon emissions annually and therefore bring us to a net zero emission year if we were able to do that. And there have been projects proposed to do just that. And it doesn't even seem like that large a percentage. We just have to do a little bit that can go a long way. But now I want to kind of transition to why is carbon sequestration important? So carbon sequestration is important because we cannot any longer rely on just lowering carbon emissions to kind of fix the problems that we've created. Our legacy load, so it is called, our legacy load of carbon in the atmosphere that we've released over time will continue to warm Earth for centuries. As you might know, methane, for example, is another greenhouse gas, but it has a much shorter lifetime in the atmosphere because it's broken down by light. But carbon dioxide remains in the atmosphere for millions of years. And so it's not like, oh, we released it and now we're not releasing it, so it's better. No, it's still there. It's still doing the thing. And so it's important that we remember that renewable energy, in other words, getting energy from sources that do not release carbon into the atmosphere, is not carbon sequestration. It does lower our emissions and it is great, but it does not sequester carbon from the atmosphere, which we also need to do. And now you might be wondering how? One big way is regenerative agriculture. In other words, no-till farming. But you might ask how no-till farming actually draws down carbon from the atmosphere. Wouldn't that just lower emissions because we're not having this huge tilling season where all this carbon's getting released? Well, actually, it could draw down or lead to the drawdown of carbon because no-till farming will cause topsoil to grow back. In other words, that 60-year period or 60 more harvests that we had, well, that number now grows to an exponential number because we can grow back the topsoil that was going to be gone in 60 years. And when we do this, we get 10 times more carbon sequestration capacity in that soil and better plant health. So it's a win-win. And more water is also sequestered and stored because rain infiltrates topsoil and actually goes into providing water to the microbes and the plants, whereas rain that hits desertified soils, in other words, dry dirt with no topsoil, it just runs off and evaporates quicker and leaves the soil dry. So what are some ways that we can do this regeneration of topsoil and ways that we can speed it up other than just not tilling? Well, one way is by using cattle and what's called planned grazing. Cows are not bad, as some people have gotten in their minds. They are actually really useful, and if we, store them in a better way, instead of in dirt pens and actually grazing large areas of vegetation, that is how they help by bringing back the soil microbes. Remember how I said microbes are key. The soil microbes are what create the topsoil by breaking down the plant litter and creating humus, a layer of humus or topsoil. It's just organic material that the microbes break down the plant material into. That humus is super important. And because cows bring back microbes with poop and urine that they spread around while grazing, this topsoil regeneration process is sped up because then the microbes bring back the topsoil very quickly by using the organic matter or the plants at the surface to create humus. And that humus then stores carbon. Note that humus or topsoil organic carbon delivers nutrients to the crops, so it is a win-win situation. And again, microbes are required to extract the nutrients from the humus. Organic carbon, or humates and fulvates, are just types of organic carbon in topsoil. And because these microbes are required to do so, it is no wonder that it takes more fertilizer, more nutrients, to grow the same crops as it did decades ago, because now we've killed off all those microbes and we are now required to play the part of the microbes and provide the nutrients to the plants. Without the microbes, they're not getting those nutrients delivered to them anymore. So it is really important that we bring back the microbes to reduce our use of fertilizer, as well as increase the capacity for sequestering and storing carbon in the soil. Another way we can speed up regeneration of topsoil as well as recycle our trash is composting. Again, the key here is microbes.
Okay, let's see if I can get back to the screen now.
Yeah, you'll find a button that says stop share. Maybe if you click on that red dot at the top that has a circle on it.
Let's see. How do I know where to go, I think. Thank you for your patience. There we go. Okay, we're back. I don't know, did that come through for everybody? Screen broadcasting. Did that share come through? Was everybody able to see that and hear that?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, wonderful. So I just felt like I wanted to share that because there's just a really good foundation of knowledge that we're trying to cultivate here. So some terms, some basic information, and then kind of repeating it, I feel is helpful. So jumping into just reiterating some of this, a few solutions on the bigger scale. And is this the first slide or the second slide, Mary Beth?
It's the second. You want me to go back to the first?
No, that's okay. This is just fine. Okay, few solutions on the bigger scale we've been hearing about: regenerative agriculture, cover crops, no-till farming, diverse crop rotation, agroforestry, permaculture design, rotational grazing, rewilding and allowing land to regenerate. And we heard about biochar, microbial inoculants, a lot of things that can be done on bigger scales that are starting to be explored. And the education needs to become widespread, and then the activation, so that we can really make a difference going forward. A few solutions on smaller scales: support land stewardship practices rooted in local and indigenous knowledge. Volunteer, get involved. On smaller scales, we can all do kind of all do our part just by volunteering and get involved. A big part of that as well is self-educating, empowering ourselves through soil regenerative workshops. Anything we can do to empower ourselves through educating ourselves, even like just this workshop, which yeah, very grateful for everybody who's shown up to empower themselves through a little bit of information and education. Show up right where we're at. There's, farmers markets, gardening projects, produce share programs. I think just about everywhere I've lived, I've found some type of produce share programs. So we can tap into that local network of produce shares. Support and invest your time, money, and energy in local organic farms. It's really a behavior shift, resisting the purchasing of produce or any products that come from companies that are damaging and deteriorating soil, as we start learning, what that means. My favorite one, she was just about to go into it, is composting. Like I said, natural sustainable building has been a little more my wheelhouse, but throughout that, I've had just wonderful opportunities globally to be part of building compost, putting my hands in the soil, learning about farming according to the cycles of the moon, just being part of beautiful projects. So wherever we're at, we have opportunities to engage. My favorite piece of all this really is the composting. You can share the next slide, Mary Beth. I feel like composting is something we can do anywhere we're at that makes a much bigger difference than we're aware of. Just shaping behavior instead of throwing away your scraps, instead of letting um, letting things in your yard just seem like it's waste. You can pile them up and create beautiful opportunities of very rich, nourishing, nutrient dense compost, and start replenishing the soil right where you're at. And here's a composting layer involve alternating thin layers of browns, carbon-rich materials like leaves and wood chips, and greens, nitrogen-rich materials like food scraps and grass clippings. There is a bit of a recipe to it to create success and to speed up that process. And I believe Ben probably could speak quite a bit more to this than I can. But it's not rocket science. It's just a matter of working with your browns and your greens, looking at the rough guidelines of 3 times as much browns as greens, or approximately like a 30-to-1 ratio of carbon to nitrogen, and just understanding that recipe and then just sending it and allowing what you have in your yard and yard scraps and all the greens and browns that you have access to, building your own compost right where you're at. Um, this specific one is called lasagna layering. It's pretty common amongst composting. It helps create the right balance of nutrients. It also decreases odors, and there's a lot of stigma about, oh, I don't want to do a compost because it creates so much odor. And if you do it with a bit of intention and a bit of education, you can decrease odors. It allows for drainage, aeration, and promotes efficient decomposition and increased microbial activity. So a few reasons for composting. And I'm just driving this composting thing home because I want everybody in the world to compost. I've done it everywhere I'm at, even, in situations where we have no yard. I've been able to figure out how to do at least a little bit of a compost and put it into pots and plants within the home. Reduces landfill waste, enriches soil and retains moisture, cuts down methane emissions, saves money, disempowers negative environmental aspects of chemical fertilizer manufacturers, creates more resilience and nutrient-rich plants. Considering the staggering effects, even in the first slide, at this point, every effort really does matter. And so part of the intention of this offering, this share, is just to activate people. I mean, something that you can do that really makes a big impact and seems small is just getting your own small compost set up wherever you're at. If you can go to the next slide, Mary Beth, the last one here. So adequate mineral nutrition for our bodies starts with adequate mineral nutrition in our soils. So again, turning towards holistic health. That's what Mary Beth, Tasha, and I are really diving into with our career paths and just our own self-development is, and Tasha's going to speak more about this, but the Wild Health Initiative. So just ask you to pause and listen, ask yourself, what areas of my holistic health are not thriving? Without devotion to personal health, we cannot even show up for soil health. This is similar to the positive feedback loop that were talked about in that video. Our neglect of our individual health, which neglects our ability to create healthier soils, which then depletes the soils, which then in turn comes back around to poor human health. So it's called a positive feedback loop, but it's the way that I really feel convicted and that we feel convicted that it starts with nourishing our bodies. That way we can show up for, increasing and promoting soil health, because if we don't have the energy, we don't have the clarity, our hormones are out of balance, our nervous system is shot, we're fatigued and drained, and we're not sleeping well, we're not going to be able to show up to do bigger things on bigger scales and be part of something as simple as remineralizing and nourishing our soils and promoting soil health. Another question, have I considered that food grown in degraded soils could be drastically negatively affecting my holistic health? How can feeding my body with optimal nutrition grown in regenerative soil elevate my holistic health and wealth? Soils that include regenerative practices and rich organic matter and microbial life grow crops with more vitamins, more minerals, antioxidants, phytonutrients. They're proven to stimulate the immune system and aid in digestion, increase serotonin production, decrease inflammation, regulate hormones, balance the nervous system, decrease stress, anxiety, and depression. Wow, what a positive impact just soil health can do, and consuming foods grown in high nutrient dense soils support deeper sleep cycles, cleanse and revitalize the gut biome. This is why we're introducing wild health. This is why we're leaning into this wild health initiative and partnering with Purium Organic Superfoods. So with that, I want to introduce Tasha Carter and pass the next portion on to her. Tasha Carter is a sacred song weaver, an intuitive transformational guide, and a gift igniter. She is my co-creator of this Wild Health Initiative and carries a wonderful fire that illuminates our paths back to our center and our inner guidance. I just really appreciate the gentle wisdom she carries, and grateful she's taken the time, especially alongside motherhood, to show up and share with us today. Go ahead, darling. Please share.
Well, hello everyone, and thank you, Ben and Ben, so much for all of the knowledge that you've cultivated over your lifetime to be able to bring this to us in such a cohesive way and in such a passionate way. I really appreciate that. And thank you for the beautiful acknowledgement and introduction. It is such a beautiful blessing to be on this path we are now, getting to really deepen what it means to us to be stewards of this planet at this time, and to deepen into ourselves and our own personal health. And as we do so, deepen into our connection to where that health actually comes from. And it does come from the soil. And the nutrients that we take in through our food are the nutrients that are in the soil. And so we can all see how important it is that those nutrients are continued to be put back into the soil and regenerated. I love what Ben Stallings shared about how soil is this combination of fungus and microbes, how all of these things are working together cohesively. And that's very much how humanity is as well, even though in certain ways we've become disconnected from our inherent connectedness. But a big part of the Wild Health Initiative too is also to bring back that community. Every individual and unique person has something to bring to the whole, to the collective. And so part of our endeavor is really to bring those unique souls together to build something that's greater than the sum of its parts. So we are also building a legacy for our family and future generations. When we think about soil health, or when I think about soil health, it's wow, literally the health of the soil that we create now is what's going to sustain and provide for my children's children's children. And that's incredibly important to me, that as my body goes into the earth, that I've left the space in a better way for those future generations, that they will be able to step on that land and be able to feel the life that's within it, feel the love that's been sown and the life that's been cultivated over time. As we know, we cannot buy topsoil, it can only be built. And so we have partnered with Purium because this company prioritizes these regenerative practices that are organic. And as we take these foods in, it's like Ben was also saying, you know, we come online to some of these deeper issues and connect more with life as a whole. And as we nourish ourselves, there's more space for us to show up for that collective journey. So part of this endeavor has been so beautifully supported by our wonderful mentor, Mary Beth. And she is a legacy builder and a superfood warrior and a wealth of knowledge on many aspects when it comes to holistic health, including the regenerative aspect. So I am so excited to welcome her into the space to share her voice. And thank you all for being here, and we'll see you soon.
Awesome. Thank you, Tasha. And thank you, Ben Loki and Ben Stills. I'm so enjoying this conversation. It's one that's super passionate to me. Just to give you a little background on why this whole topic is important to me, I am certified in permaculture design. I got to do that down in Costa Rica quite a few years ago and work on mini farms and projects. I grew up with my mother organic gardening all of our life. And so organic gardening has always been a huge passion of mine. And kind of like Ben, no matter where I'm living, I figure out a way to grow some lettuce, either if it's in a windowsill or organic garden out in my backyard. And I have had the pleasure and the privilege of being part of organic garden projects, soil building projects, native plant projects all over the world, Costa Rica, California, Colorado, Hawaii, South Africa, and West Africa. So a lot of my passion for health and holistic healing and food and soil health has led me to become a partner with Purium Organic Superfoods. So 6.5 years ago, I started my partnership with this company because of this mission and because of wanting to share this education, and am now a 2-star crown leader within the company, which means I am actively out there sharing with thousands and thousands of people about how to actually find food that is healthy for you, grown in healthy soils, and how to continue to promote regenerative agriculture and organic farming, and share the mission of what is glyphosate and what is harming our soil and all of those things. So within all that, I'm also certified in regenerative detoxification, which is just kind of a fancy way of saying, learning how to lean into supporting our individual health through principles and patterns of nature, incorporating regenerative aspects of life into the way that we heal our bodies and work with our bodies. So that's a little bit of background on me. And some of this was already said, but these are like the main reasons that the issue of soil health is so important to me. Like it was said, 97% of original topsoil in the US has been depleted, all throughout the US. So if you think about how our, nutrients come from the soil, if 97 to 99% of the soil is depleted, through correlation, that would mean 97 to 99% of human population is walking around depleted on some level because we're not getting the necessary nutrients we need that we once had, right? And then this was already said that, it's an alarming statistic that we only have 60 to 70 years of crop harvest left if we continue at the current rate. And being a mother myself, that's terrifying. I can't even really imagine it. So that's a big reason I have a voice in this, on this mission. And then one of the big things that I recognized years ago was what a pervasive issue glyphosate and other herbicides and pesticides are wreaking havoc not only on the diversity of our planet, but the diversity of the gut microbiome. And so glyphosate, it was mentioned a couple times, but if you don't know what it is, it's an antibiotic that is put on the soil, put on the plants to kill bad bacteria, but it also kills, beneficial microbes and beneficial pathogens. And it binds to essential minerals that make them inaccessible to plants and humans. So Ben Stills, when you were explaining how, the nutrients from the soil go through the plant, one of the things that glyphosate is doing is it's inhibiting that process from happening. So approximately 280 to 350 million pounds, and I've even heard up to 400 million pounds of glyphosate are sprayed on US crops each year, and that accounts for 20% of the worldwide use. So it's pervasive. It's now found in 75% of our water systems. It's glyphosate contamination and is showing up in babies' umbilical cords now. So babies are even coming into their life with a compromised gut microbiome. Our animals are greatly affected because it's sprayed on our parks and our lawns, and the pads of their feet absorb it. So we're seeing increased cancer rates and so many other things in our animal population as well as our human population. So to me, this is something that I actively help to educate on and share awareness about. So I love that some book suggestions were given. I'm going to share some movie suggestions if you want to learn more about the movement of regenerative agriculture, regenerative farming. Two great documentaries, Kiss the Ground and Common Ground. There's also an amazing activism conglomeration, if you will, called Farmer's Footprint. And if you go there, it actually gives you manuals on how to start, regenerative movement within your community, whether that's petitioning for, not having glyphosate sprayed on the park lawns, or it's petitioning a composting movement in your local community. These are some resources that we can all get behind so that we can, learn more and share more and have resources to do so. So where does Purium come into all of this? So Purium is the organic superfood company that myself and Ben and Tasha partner with, and it means pure and premium. So the vision of this company is to bring real food to people that is grown in real soil, regeneratively grown soils, organic soils, so that we can be at abundant health. And if you think about it, 100 years ago, all food really was organic. Most of our soils were clean, our waters were clean, most of our soils were mineral rich. We weren't doing mass agriculture yet, so not a ton of chemicals, herbicides, and pesticides. But unfortunately, the world we live in today is very different. Real food has been replaced by corporate produced, fast, cheap, addictive, processed food like stuff. I wouldn't even call it food a lot of the times. And what we are here to do as Purium is offer a solution for not only our bodies, but for the earth. So, one of the things that we are adamant about within Purium is regenerative and organic farming. So, we have a farm that's in Utah, in Southwest Utah, that produces over 50% of the food that we grow. And it is at the base of an old volcanic lake bed, and it has an upwards of 80 feet deep of rich, mineral-rich soil. And some of the things that we do on our farms and we practice with, whether we're growing our own food or partnering with other food farms, we work with organic farms all over the world, is our main goal is to protect the microbial life of the soil. And we do this through, encouraging better crop diversity, compost use. There's things like fixing nitrogen naturally by replacing synthetic fertilizers and doing crop rotations and what's the word I'm looking for? Planting nitrogen fixing plants, so like pea crops and beans and other things when the soil isn't being used. Adding organic matter that we've talked about to build the humus and the microbial activity, to protect against erosion and compactation during off seasons. So, like Ben, I loved how you're explaining the glyphosate around the edges, how that was contributing to erosion. So protecting against erosion in various ways, balancing the nutrients in the soil, again, using legumes and nitro-fixing plants, resting the land. This is a big part of agriculture, regenerative agriculture, is that the land isn't in use 100% of the time. So resting the land so that mineral cycles can rebound. Mimicking biodiversity in nature as best as possible, just like our guts and our gut health. We want it to mimic the biodiversity of the environments we're around. Create a different varied root depth. So, have roots that are really long that go deep into the soil to pull up nutrients, and also have roots that go really wide and can pull nutrients from different layers of the soil. Focusing on planting in a variety of different ways, with different use of different plants so that we can feed more soil organisms. And then green manuring, like we talked about, which is nitrogen fixing. There's practices called triple cross sow, which is crisscrossing rows or layering and doing it in different timing. We do things like glacial dusting on our farms, spring water irrigation, no-till. So these are some of the things that you'll see common in regenerative and organic farming. And in the past 50 to 60 years, there has definitely been a major and consistent decline in key nutrients in fruits and vegetables because of the conventional soil practices. So, on average, a regeneratively grown vegetable has 21% more nutrients than other conventionally grown crops. And glyphosate, I'll bring that up again, it is the active ingredient in Roundup. and it has been detected in a significant portion of food and beverages. So I think over 70% of conventional food crops contain glyphosate. It's really high in things like wine and beer, obviously fast food and all of that. And it's being detrimental not only to the environment, but to our bodies. And so one of the things that we're really focused on with Purium is how do we offer solutions for this? So Dave and Amy are the founders of our company, and they share two similar beliefs that raw natural foods should both be accessible and affordable for everyone. And food should be sustainably sourced from Mother Earth in a way that gives back and not just takes. So one of the ways that we get these foods to everyone, whether we service a lot of people in food deserts as well, people who don't have access to, fresh food, let alone organic food, is we do wind and solar dehydration on site. And one thing that we do with our crops is we use 100% of the crops. So a lot of times when you go to the grocery store, by the time that food has gotten to the grocery store, not only has it been to multiple facilities and it's been on multiple trucks that all use gasoline, and it's been in holding facilities with refrigerators and all those elements that go into it, but almost sometimes 60% of the food is thrown out by the time it hits the grocery store because it doesn't look that pretty. And we realize the waste that is happening there. So we use 100% of the food and then dehydrate it via wind and solar dehydration on the farms so that it can be dehydrated into a powder form and transported more effectively using less transportation vehicles. We're not losing as much crop. We're harvesting it at peak ripeness so that we're getting the max amount of nutritional quality. We also have 100% compostable packaging. We have one item that is still in plastic that we're in the transition period, but our packaging that you receive your foods in, it's plant-based ink. It's made out of hemp bamboo, and there's one other ingredient in there that I'm blanking right now, but you can literally, when you're done with the foods, go plant that in your backyard, right? And use that as part of your composting material. I like to even plant plants in it and then stick it straight in the ground for those microbes to eat at, and then my plant to be in the earth. So we have long-standing farmer relations of 20 to 30 years that we've been working with farmers, and we really support fair wages for farmers. So that's a big part of our mission too, is that farmers should be paid for the really important work that they're doing. And then food delivery efficiency. The beauty of the food that we have here is it goes straight from the farm to the manufacturing facility in Long Beach, California, and then straight to your door. So again, we're reducing carbon emissions by reducing the amount of trucks needed, the amount of refrigeration processes needed. And if you think about when you go to the grocery store, even when you drive your car, a lot of times, maybe you walk, maybe you ride your bike, which is great, but you go to the grocery store and then a lot of time you go and you put that food in the refrigerator for however long, and sometimes even the food goes bad. And so we're really trying to avoid a lot of those pieces of when and where are we wasting food and nutrients, so that we can be healthier and absorb and take in more of that. So those are some of the ways that we're really working towards this mission. And in the last 5 years, we've saved over 300 pounds of plastic from environmental contamination due to our compostable packaging. And we are now supporting other companies, other natural food companies, to transition out of plastic into these compostable packaging materials as well. So we believe in interconnectivity, right? Everything we do to nature ends up reflecting back on ourselves and vice versa. So we believe that when you truly nourish and detoxify with living foods, with real food, food that has high mineral rich soils, you then get the benefit of healthier sleep, healthier gut, healthier mind, healthier mood, more natural energy. And that leads to more productivity in your life, right? The ability to have energy to pour more into your passion and your purpose and be an advocate for things that you care about. For me, this is one of them. So we believe strongly if you raise your health, you raise your mental health, and you raise your energy to share and be a contributing member of society. So we are what we call the transformation company, and this is where this is our core pillars are health, wealth, planet, and community. So we are creating a world where health is a priority, not a luxury, where wealth is generated through purpose, not pressure, that the planet thrives through regenerative choices, and that communities flourish through collaboration and support. And so those are the main things that we're about and what we speak to and what we aim to provide solutions towards. So just a quick example, I'm going to share some of the nutrition that we have. For example, here, this is our power shake. It has 96% of the nutrition you need in a day, all regeneratively, organically farmed fruit or vegetables, and it helps in so many ways. It's basically like the equivalent of eating 6 superfood salads. And I don't know about you, I consider myself a very healthy individual, but I don't sit down and eat 6 superfood salads in a day. But you can get it here in this dehydrated form. So it helps in many ways to detoxify the cells, alkalize the body, obviously satisfy hunger, increase energy levels. And then we have something called superamino's 23, which creates lean muscle. It helps to burn fat and improves skin elasticity, and it's all plant-based, legume-based. We do not use anything with artificial colors, sweeteners, preservatives. We test for glyphosate, and we one of the things that we're really adamant about is creating lifestyle. So it's not about, just doing like a 10-day cleanse or trying to eat good for 10 days, but it's about helping people cultivate this healthy relationship with their food, where it comes from, how it impacts our health, and maintaining those healthy living lifestyle habits that then transfer into other areas of our life. So one of our main programs we do is called the 90-day transformation, where we help people get started. Let's start with 90 days of cultivating and creating these habits and deeply nourishing our body on this level so that we can feel more of the benefit and go out there and start living healthier, happier, and more productive lives. Some other things that are involved in our 90-day program is our biomedic, and this is our solution to glyphosate. So in our preclinical trials, it's all herbal based. It actually has humic and fulvic, humic acid and humic ore and fulvic acid in it, which are all naturally occurring in soil. And so in the clinical studies, it shows that it reduces 75% of the glyphosate found in our bodies. And in conjunction with that, it helps to reduce 74% of C-reactive protein, which is actually the precursor for inflammation in the body, and where a lot of ailments start is with that inflammation. So that is our solution to glyphosate. It's unavoidable, it's everywhere. What we do as a solution is get it out of our bodies so that we can be proactive and repairing our gut so that we can live healthier lives. Our apothecaries are 100% organic tart cherry and happen to be the only fruit that contain naturally occurring melatonin. So we are a company that believes in, not taking necessarily external sources of nutrition, like melatonin, that when you take that external source, your body kind of gets used to not creating it anymore, producing it anymore. But when you're actually feeding your body foods that have melatonin, it encourages your body to create more of that. And so that's part of that regenerative approach is not is feeding the body fruits and herbs that help it do what it already knows how to do at its best level. So the tart cherry really supports in that deep sleep and also inflammation response and damaged cell activity and things like that. So those are some of the things. And then we also introduce parasite cleanse in some of our programs, and even cracked cell chlorella, to really support the body in letting go of some of these pathogens and other things that maybe have overgrown. And just like soil, if we have too much of one pathogen or one bacteria, it's going to overtake, right? And that's why we heard Ben and the woman in the video talk about the instabilization of the soil and how we have to use more fertilizers now because we've killed so many of some bacterias, and it's creating more growth of other bacterias. And so it's the same for our bodies, is keeping that healthy balance. So all of these foods, this whole program is based around how do we feed the nutrients to our body that help us maintain healthy balance. And these are just some of my experiences with eating real food. I've been an organic gardener my whole life, right? I've eaten really well, and I experienced dramatic transformation when I started ingesting Purium superfoods, primarily because of this glyphosate piece and because of the regenerative soil practices. So at one point, you can see me over there on the left. experiencing a lot of puffiness and inflammation and lethargy and sluggishness and digestive issues, skin problems, yeast, parasite issues, disrupted sleep. And then down on the right, both me and my husband being on this program, I experienced some healthy weight loss. He experienced some healthy weight gain, more bowel regulation, healthier complexion, brain fog lifted, brighter eyes, mood regulation. And so it just shows how much of what we eat affects not only the physical body, but the inner workings of the mental and emotional as well. And here are Ben and Tasha's results. Ben or Tasha, I don't know if you want to come off mute and speak to these pictures at all and your experience of eating real food, but feel free to.
I'll jump right in because that smile seeing this picture. I just turned 47. This is only about 2 months ago. At my mid 40s, was always an extreme athlete, a high elite athlete, both in Xterra, triathlons, mountain biking, snowboarding, climbing, baseball, football, basketball at a younger age. Father of four now and a bonus child. And so as I entered into the 40s, my vision started to decrease. I started to have more joint pain. I got on the beautiful dad gut and things just started to bloom in ways I didn't want them to. But I gave up on ever going back to the gym. I was never much of a big fan of the gym. And I just absolutely cannot tolerate putting things in my body that I can't pronounce. Exercise physiology and emphasis on sport nutrition was my undergrad. And just a long journey throughout traveling the world has really connected me to listening to my body, trusting my body, and with discipline, discernment, honoring. I'm just not going to put things in it that I don't know how to, that I don't understand. If I don't know where it comes from, if I don't know that's good for me, I don't put it in my body. So I just couldn't trust any type of supplements, any type of the GNC stuff, the whey proteins, anything that had products that I didn't know about. And so I gave up on kind of basically looking into opportunities such as Purium. And Mary Beth, very gratefully, like she pursued me and helped me lean into it and explore it again. And when I did, I started to do my own homework and realized everything she just expressed, right? The stuff that really matters, from the earth consciousness to the regenerative soil to the stewardship and the conviction about compostable packaging. It all mattered to me, but it also mattered to me to be building community, which really felt good, as well as rebuilding my gut biome and the health of my body. And this was 3 weeks. So I started the ULT. Day one is the first picture. Into about the 21st day was the second picture. And that's just physical. That really doesn't dive into how I was feeling internally, emotionally, my nervous system, my better sleep. So I'm happy. I'm really excited to be where I'm at. I love hearing Mary Beth speak more about it. It just really confirms that I'm on the right path, and I do get more excited and set aside my resistance to share in this way, because I'm like, man, this is really impacted my life. So it's important to me to share things that I know can help me and believe they can help other people.
Awesome, Ben. Thank you. And it's been so great to just witness your transformation over this journey. Tasha, do you have any words you want to say?
Sure. This journey has been so beautiful. And, coming into this, I didn't feel terrible, but I also just didn't feel great. And that can be a little bit of a tricky place to be in because, you don't know how good you can feel until you start feeling really good. And I noticed immediate shifts in my energy levels and my inflammation levels. I didn't necessarily sleep longer, but I slept deeper. So it's like my sleep became more efficient and I didn't need quite as much sleep. But one of the biggest impacts for me that really weren't so much physically visible was the emotional and mood regulation. And to just feel stable and grounded in my moods and within my body, it was like things could take place, but I wouldn't necessarily have this visceral reaction to them that I would in the past. It was as if my body had the resources it needed in order to process whatever life was bringing to me. And so that was really deeply impactful. And now the beauty that we are in is really getting to be able to share this transformation with others. And I'm experiencing so much joy in witnessing other people come to this level of health and connection with themselves as well. And yeah, that's about what I will share on that. Thank you.
Beautiful. And I would agree that, sometimes we talk about the physical aspects of how food affects us, but what I feel is almost more predominant and not maybe talked about a lot is, the mental, emotional aspects of how that affects us when we're eating food that is nutrient deficient versus regenerative and nutrient. There's so many different contrasts and mood stability, depression, anxiety, all of these things that impact people on a daily basis. And sometimes we don't think about the correlation or the connection to food, but it's very paramount. So thank you for touching on that, Tasha. So ways to support Ben and Tasha in their wild health mission. I mean, first and foremost, just kind of cheer them on and continue to have these kinds of conversations. I love that Ben and Tasha are sharing proudly what they care about and the world they want to create and the legacy they want to build, and inviting people like Ben Stills to be part of the conversation and collaborating with other individuals on a similar mission. So just cheering each other on, and supporting each other to continue to do that and educate in the ways that we feel passionate. Another way is if you're feeling interested in learning more about regenerative nutrition, how to have food that you can really trust and that is grown in organic and regenerative soils, join them on a ULT experience. And we have over 70 different products and nutrients that we provide. So anything, kind of foundational nutrients is what I shared with you all, but we also have things that pinpoint different, joint pain or things that may be coming up for heart health or a variety, cognitive function, a variety of different things. For me, postpartum support has been a big one and a big one that I support women with. So we have a whole variety of nutrition that can really support in your life and your goals and whatever those are. And then if you're feeling lit up by this conversation and wanting to be a part of this mission and this collaboration, there's also ways to become partners with Ben and Tasha in this conversation, partners specifically with Purium, and then also just partners in their wild health and other endeavors that they're doing to create this education and this legacy. So the other thing that is key, I think we live in a world where referrals is really important, where if you know someone that's looking to up-level their health or learn more about regenerative nutrition or learn more about powerful business partnership and collaboration, think of Ben and Tasha as people who are actively pursuing this and actively leading their lives this way. So please, any referrals you want to send their way that have to do with this topic, of course, that will support them in their wild health mission as well. So I believe, oops, that slide is a little old. The last thing that I want to share on is just this idea of ikigai. And it's a Japanese word that means a reason to live. And for me, over my years of learning different passions and how I want to contribute to the world and be a steward of this earth and communities, what I've learned is that, there's nothing more fulfilling than doing your passion and your mission and having that be your career and your vocation. And so that's what we're passionate about with Purium is how do we merge those things and how do we do what you love and merge it with what the world needs, with how you earn an income and with what your skill set is. And that's exactly what Tasha and Ben are doing here with their wild health mission. That's exactly what I'm doing in my life and learning to incorporate even more. So, if you get anything out of this Zoom today, I hope you got lots of great education and information and things to think about, but also this idea of really showing up in your passion and your love and your mission and your vocation and how do we weave it into, obviously all of us need to make a living, right? And collaboration is a big part of that in our Purium mission. So Purium has created an outlet for me to do so and thousands of others. And I'm so excited for how it's integrating into Ben and Tasha's life as well. So now I believe we'll stop the share and open it up for question and answer. So if anyone has questions about anything that was shared today, whether it was composting or Ben Stallings piece or anything Purium related, we would love to welcome those now.
Hey, Mary Beth, just real quick, you just stopped the share, you said, right?
Yeah.
I really wanted to bring an invitation for people to be able to tune into, not just in this call, but even in the live where people just are kind of, checking it out, to follow up with Ben Stallings. I don't know if there's a way to still do that, but I would really love to kind of highlight his work, give an opportunity for people to tune into him, receive more of his wisdom and education, just follow him in whatever capacity. Can we still do that somehow?
Yeah. I mean, do you have his website or Ben? We can drop any of your information in the chat or if you have a slide.
Sure. My website is interdependentweb.com. And there are some designs that I've done. There are some links to other presentations, other classes and things. And um, uh, yeah, just a lot of good information there. And again, Kansas Permaculture Institute has a design certification course coming up this summer that's open to the public. And also, if folks are in Colorado, Pikes Peak Permaculture is probably closer to you. And I know that they do certification courses also. And uh, I really enjoyed hearing about your work, Mary Beth. Thank you for sharing about that.
Yeah, thank you. I learned so much from you, Ben. Thank you for the collaboration. Awesome. Well, you can feel free to come off mute or maybe drop a question in the chat if you're not in a space to speak. iPhone, did I see you come off?
Yeah, I'd like to tune in, and my name's Miles, and I'm really feel blessed that I was a part of this Zoom meeting with you guys. With Ben's share in the beginning, I didn't have anything to share, but it was really intriguing and fascinating, and just learning more, being more educated on what's happening to the earth, and if there is a position for me to make an effort to uh, bring productivity and stop using the plastic and whatever else we can do, but and then as far as Purium and Ben and Tasha, for my experience is I've had a lot of brain fog and been overwhelmed with my work day, and I'm a business owner. I got a lot on my plate, and I'm trying to figure out how I
Bit
can.
invasive.
I got one.
What's that?
Collie. Yeah,
Oops,
she's
sorry, I'm
their border collie.
trying to mute. There you go. Keep going. Sorry about that.
Yeah, you're good. But yeah, I knew that I was missing an ingredient, and this lifestyle that I've been able to tap into and work with is really helped bring more of myself online. And me and Ben and Tasha going back and forth about me being a partner, the best when I've come across something like this in my path, I like to just share it. And so I'm really grateful and super hyped to be a part of this journey with you guys. And so, yeah, I appreciate you guys' time and got a lot from it. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, brother. Appreciate you.
Miles, I'll look forward to getting to know you more for sure.
Hi, this is Inga.
Thanks.
Sorry, Miles, were you finished? Yes?
Yeah, he's giving you the thumbs up.
Okay, perfect. This is Inga, and I'm actually also really grateful to be on this call today. I was planning to go to yoga on 4 o'clock, but I actually skipped it because I was really receiving a lot of information and a lot of like, it kind of pulled me in. I was like, okay, I'm going to tune in, but I only have so much time. And then it just pulled me in like this knowledge. I actually have been also with Ben and Tasha. I've been also taking Purium product. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I went through a program once and I saw big benefits. And then I love healthy food, but I kind of fell off, in certain ways. And now I have been back on again every morning taking a shake. And I also, Tasha, I really loved what you mentioned was the productivity and the mind clarity. I really feel that. I just moved into new house and I just traveled in Asia for a month, and it's like returning back, everyone's like, "Oh, aren't you so stressed out? Aren't you like so like overwhelmed?" And I was like, no, I'm not. And I actually have noticed more of a productivity. And so I loved you pointing that out because I just have like good days. And I start my morning by taking my daughter to school and I make myself a shake. And that's what I drink on my way to work to drop off my daughter to school. And that's how I start my day. And it really makes a difference for the day. So I just wanted to that feedback. So, and I'm excited to share Purium with my clients as well.
Very cool. Thanks for staying on. I love that
Yeah.
you're enticed by the information. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. And I actually did just get a brand new big garden. And so I'm also really wanting to have a direction on how to create a garden that is growing food that is rich nutrition. So it's like really good timing for me to hear information. And I learned a lot, like a lot of those things I had no idea, even though I consider myself pretty educated. It's just really cool to hear somebody for both all of you sharing. I just kind of got little nuggets from everything. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if Ben, if you have resources for that on your website or you know of some, but farmersfootprint2.org, if you go there, they have some different PDFs that are like gardening 101 for the beginner or whatever it is, that can kind of help with some of that too. So definitely.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Inga. We're really excited to have you along and can't wait to come out and visit you in your new space.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited too. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, Ben and Tasha, you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, that looks like about everybody, and a few people have jumped off. So, wow, I just appreciate everybody that's still here, staying in this for almost an hour and 45 minutes. I know that time is really our greatest resource, and one of the most important things to us. So, thank you for offering your time. I value it and respect it. So grateful for this team. Ben Stallings, just so much appreciation for you sharing, and all Mary Beth, you as well, and Tasha. Each of you bring such powerful pieces to this puzzle that just grateful to be on this call myself and to be learning from each of you, and really excited for where this could go and what opportunities could come up. Ben, I really look forward to just kind of tuning in with your direction a little more and looking into some of the courses that are offered through Kansas Permaculture. And I know the Pikes Peak is out here, but after listening to you, I think I'm already like, if I'm going to do it, I'd rather be somewhere where I get to talk more directly with Ben. So appreciation to all of you. Thank you so much for your time. I'll give here just a minute. If anybody else wants to open up, share, say goodbye. And if not, thank you guys so very much. Wonderful call, and just very grateful.
Thank you.